want to pay homage to the legendary Craig Wolfley, died at the age of 66. He's appeared here on this show multiple times. He's certainly going to be missed as the voice of the Steelers,
Absolutely.
played for the team on the offensive line back in the 80s. I know we briefly talked. I know you knew Craig personally. I'm just going to turn things over to you, Arthur, to pay homage to a Steelers legend.
Yeah, man. Absolute Steelers legend, man, on and off the field. I always think back to my first time meeting Craig back in 2014 when I came from Buffalo to Pittsburgh. Him being a guy that, is a Buffalo native. The way that he talks about being up from, oh, man, I know all about that, man. Let's talk about these wings. Let's talk about this. It's like, you're like, oh, man, like, dude, you really know something about food. You really know something about these Buffalo Wild Wings up there. All right, let's go. But then the refreshing part when I always thought of Wolf was the fact that every time I would hear him break down players, every time I'd interact with him about football, it was always a positive perspective. Even if he was criticizing and talking about what a player might not have done well, it still was from a positive stance, a space of speaking life versus telling a player they're done, they're not good enough, they need to go find a new job, fire this player, which we do see so commonly in today's media profession. Those are the things that always stood out. But for me, man, I was very fortunate because, I had a great personal relationship with Wolf as well. He was one of my mentors. This is one of the guys that I had my first Pittsburgh radio show with, hosted a show with him, man, my second year in Pittsburgh. Then from there, man, when I retired and I started working for Steelers Nation Radio, going on my 7th year now, holy smokes, time has been flying. This was the guy that I would see every day because his show would end right before my show began. And yeah, he sat in the chair that I would sit in. So, from there, you think about all of those interactions and just his humility to where he would end the show and in the hallway, we're having a conversation. And he literally wants to ask me my perspective on a linebacker, my perspective on a scheme, my perspective on a player. And I'm always thinking to myself, like, Wolf, man, you played a decade plus in this thing. You've done media for, decade plus. You've called big game after big game, and you care about my opinion. And it would always just tickle me, man, to an extent to when just like, man, that's like so cool that a guy of his status looks at me and values my opinion to that level. And it would go back and forth. Just the constant conversations that I would have with him about offensive line play or just the schematics of what you're trying to key or read. And just how he was always just a resource to me, man. And a guy that would always show up and always be consistent.